Hey everyone, recording live for the first time. Elevate your AIQ. Having a conversation with my friend Mike Fitzsimmons, better known as Fitz, CEO and founder of Crosschq. So how's it going today, Fitz?
Fired up to be here. It's raining. We're all getting wet.
It started really coming down, and we were lucky to be under this tent. We'll see if it starts raining sideways, if that holds up. So Fitz, really good to see you. Glad you guys made it back to RecFest. I wanted to just give my listeners a taste of what you guys are doing for advancing the mission around quality of hire and everything you guys have built so far. And I'd love to hear about Quin, the new AI assistant that you just launched.
Awesome. Well, we've been kind of leading the charge around this whole quality of hire conversation for several years now. First things first, it's exciting to see that finally this is becoming a real priority for companies. Everybody's talking about it now.
Yeah.
Right? That just wasn't the case a couple of years ago. LinkedIn published that study at the beginning of this year that said it's the number one topic for talent acquisition for the next 5 years. So it's happening. It's time. And what's really neat about that is sort of all the innovation we've been doing is finally, the innovation, the work we've been doing is now catching up with a market that's ready to take advantage of that work. So, to be more specific to that, we've continued to really focus hard around connecting data, right? Connecting hiring data with hiring outcomes. Not just tracking data like quick quits and things of that nature, but really going deep on how do we measure and evaluate quality of hire, and how do we enable our customers to actually start to operationalize around this metric, which means how do I reliably measure it, and then how do I start to optimize hiring to drive up quality of hire. So it's really been awesome to see the market come together as our product and our technology has evolved.
Absolutely. So I feel like part of the evolution of quality of hire is first acknowledging that it is important and we need to start tracking it. But are you seeing maturity in terms of, look, we know the way we measure it might not be exactly the same as how everyone else measures it, but based on what we know about our company, based on the data that we have available and all this is the way we're approaching it. And, we're going to, until something goes awry, like this is the formula that we're going to.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a great question because it lines up, frankly, with some of the investments we've been making. We recently announced a new member to our team, which is Dr. Steve Hunt, as our scientist in residence.
Sure.
The reason we did this was to try and evolve the models to ensure that they're flexible enough to reflect the different definitions that different companies will have as to how they measure quality. The output of that is what we call a Q4 model. We're now ingesting over 30 inputs of measurement that a company can choose from to incorporate into their quality of hire measurement. The traditional stuff that we've looked at, like tenure, like performance reviews and things of that nature, that's just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
We're looking at everything from how they impact culture, how engaged they are, how aligned they are with the company's values. We're looking at self-drive. Are they participating in learning and development opportunities? So the reality is that we can't just look at this the way that so many organizations have. I hear all the time about companies that run a 90-day survey one time post-hire and ask the hiring manager whether or not it was a good hire.
Yeah.
That's like frankly, the most irresponsible way to approach this topic possible. So yeah, that's a key thing. The science, getting the science better and making it more flexible so you can absolutely react to different companies and different jobs are going to measure quality differently. And that's okay.
Yeah. For the customers and the prospects that you have, are they really getting, I guess I'm trying to think about the identification of these clients. Like, was it, they knew they needed to measure it and they needed a solution to help them do it? Or did they find you and be like, oh, that's interesting, I wonder if I should be tracking that? And were they clueless about quality of hire, or they kind of knew what they were after and you guys were you fit the bill?
I wish there was one answer like anything else, right? And we're doing our panel today at 3:45 on this topic, and you're going to hear from Darnell Hill, that's the head of TA at AAA, about why he now decided it's time for quality of hire. I think one piece of it, like what you'll hear from him, was slowly but surely maturing the other parts of their hiring intelligence balance, other recruiting analytics.
Yeah.
Like so many companies still are struggling to get their base level metrics under control. So once you have that under control and you can at least track things like offer acceptance and, time to hire, things of that nature, there's a natural part of the maturity curve where you're like, okay, what's the next thing to go tackle? Let's go tackle quality hire. I think the other example, it's a more macro example that I'm seeing with large enterprises. You know, one of the Fortune 100 who hired 27,000 people in the last year, 65% fail rate. It came from the C-suite.
Yeah.
It came literally from the CEO that said, "I'm done with this."
Right.
Right? We have to start measuring quality of hire. Quality of hire is now a bonus impacting KPI for the HR team.
Okay.
So play that one for a second. That's great stuff.
Is talent acquisition on the hook at all?
They're partial part of it.
They are. Okay.
Right. And in this particular organization, HR transformation, you know, they also have an HR transformation group. It's grabbing a lot of their, you know, moving to skills based on like all the normal stuff that you see. But
Yeah.
it's a combination. So absolutely, TA is part of it.
I asked because Tim Sackett and I just had a quick little exchange on LinkedIn. He said, that's not my, I mean, he wasn't saying there's no exceptions, but he was like, that's your metric. That's not my metric. It's everybody's metric. This is part of the problem. It's not, you throw a candidate over the fence, they're onboarded, and now I'm relieved of responsibility. If they leave on day 2, that's on you. No.
Well, it's just kind of an irresponsible way to think about it.
Yeah.
And what we've seen, so we just commissioned Aptitude to do a bunch of research for us around quality of hire.
Okay.
They went out to 254 senior executives in HR and TA to explore this very thing.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, when they went out to begin the research, their initial thesis was, I don't think TA wants to earn us. I think this is an HR and item. And they were amazed because the data came back and resoundingly said, TA leaders standing up saying, I want to own this. Now, establishing the measurement is different than being solely accountable. Right?
Yes, exactly.
But someone has to drive here. And where we're seeing, you know, I mentioned Darnell, who's a very thought-leading, strategic, you know, thinker who's wants to improve the quality of his organization. He knows it starts with hiring. He's going to lead the charge, but that doesn't mean, you know, that he's the only one that's responsible for it.
Yeah.
One other thing I'll mention to you is with Dr. Hunt that I mentioned earlier. We've created this rubric of what we call moderators. And these are all the things that impact quality of hire. And what's interesting, we break them into 3 different categories. The first category, believe it or not, is all about job design. And nobody talks about that. Quality of hire starts before a recruiter even gets the rep. Quality of hire starts when you're actually designing the job itself. And Steve simplifies it so it's like, is it even a job that anyone wants to do? Right? Like truly.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that is the highest correlating moderator to low quality of hire is the time of the job. It's the actual, you know, schedule.
Okay.
You know, guess what? People don't like to work late night jobs, and subsequently, if you did a traditional quality of hire model, you're going to say, well, what is that thing? So job design is critical.
Yeah.
Then you get into the recruiting process, and that's the stuff that TA has more influence on. That's sourcing, right? That's the candidate experience.
Yeah.
That's the actual selection process. What selection criteria are we using? Assessments, interviews, reference checks, whatever that stuff is. And then lastly, it's what happens once that employee starts. So we're looking at everything from the onboarding experience. Who did the training?
Yep.
We're now analyzing for sales hires who actually did the training, and we're finding amazing correlations to the trainer. Think about that from a quality of hire perspective, right?
First impressions matter. Like that whole process leaves an imprint on a new employee. So yeah, that's why I always think if you have all this data throughout the talent lifecycle, you have the traceability to do, you know, you call it root cause analysis, whatever you want to call that sort of, you know, it's like doing a retro, right? Like what could we have done better next time or whatever? And you got to go back to probably the source of the candidate to say, what did they see when this job was first posted?
I love that you brought that up because one of the things that we just added as a moderator, what marketing campaign did they respond to?
Yeah.
Think about that for a second. Like literally, what was their first touch with us? Right? It's a cool one. And you might, and so to your point, there's so many things that go into this. And that's why I think this has overwhelmed folks historically. And the accountability is a weird word, right? Because it makes you feel like you're going to take the blame for it, which is not what we're trying to push for. We're just trying to make it better.
Right. How are you going to improve if you are tracking it and understanding that you have some role to play? So back to your point, I mean, it's not that I expect TA to own quality of hire, but to think that you didn't have a part to play in the impressions that you made on this then candidate, or you don't know. I mean, that's where like I think the interview intelligence space is pretty interesting in that regard because that's where a lot of the human bias comes into play. That's where you've spent potentially several hours with this candidate and not a recruiter phone screen or some of that initial stuff. And so yeah, we've just got to mitigate bias wherever it exists. And so I think if you gather that data, it's incredible. You've basically got a quantified candidate slash employee, and so we need to look through all of that.
I love that. So we're now ingesting interview scores.
Okay.
So then correlating that, we literally can tell you who was on the interview, who of your interviewers has their scoring is the most predictive and connected to high quality hires.
Interesting.
And you see all kinds of stuff. You see interviewers that are just constantly giving fives to everybody. Right, and it actually doesn't help the process at all, and you're just burning hours of interview time, right? And then you also see certain interviewers that are doing a really good job. They're using their scorecards, and then you can start to correlate. Are we even looking for the right things on the scorecards, on our interview scorecards, right? Our structured interviews. So you're right. I mean, all of these things need unpacking, assessments, all the stuff that we use from a selection criteria, that could incorporate bias. All of that stuff matters. So. That's where we're trying to go. Right?
Yeah.
And it's exciting that the world's kind of finally ready for the ride, I feel like.
Right. So tell me about Quin.
Yeah. So, we love our Qs, Crosschq with the Q and quality of hires. So, of course, our AI co-pilot had to have a name that started with a Q. And effectively, you're even seeing a still shot behind one of the you kind of get a sense visually of what it looks like. But think about this as a conversational co-pilot sits on top of all your analytics and enables you to ask any question you want to ask of your data.
Yep.
Right? So this could be as simple as, that question was asking, what recruiting source provided me the top quality hires for all of my sales team in the Southeast last year? So you can literally get that precise with Quin and get an answer that says, hey, it looks like you have and other internal transfers and prospecting on LinkedIn. That's just kind of scratching the surface stuff.
Yeah.
But we're able to now make it really easy for anybody in the organization to ask and get questions answered, right? Without having a data scientist or without having a really deep set reporting tool to get to some of these answers, right? And so it's all those moderators that we talked about, all the questions like, hey, who was the trainer, right? Just sales hire. Experience happens when we're live. So anyway, that's what Quin is. It's available right now in beta, and we expect to have it fully commercially live before the end of the year.
Awesome.
We keep pushing it, but it's awesome. And the early reactions have just been overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah, no, I think it's huge because now you're talking about a lot of times in an organization there's just you have like your go-to kind of person that can run a report for you or can dig into this data for you, and you don't have enough to go on. Give me something more, sort of actionable in this insight. And so you've basically provided, sorry folks, kids are out there.
It's great.
Fitz ice cream. You've, now I lost my train of thought.
You're talking about needing to historically go to an analyst within the organization.
So now you are more self-sufficient. Yeah. You've got that person, whatever time of day or night. Right. You've got that person now at your disposal, and I think that's very promising. I mean, I see others going that way. I think there's some Salesforce Einstein capabilities similar to that. Visier has something that they recently announced, but I think that's part of where I want to see more people go in terms of the power of AI. Because this isn't just about saving you from some, drudgery work or, oh my God, I was just given the task of writing 100 job descriptions. Like, are you serious? That doesn't sound like fun at all. So, but now you're talking about moving up the sort of value chain of AI capabilities, giving those people more confidence in presenting answers or presenting insight and giving people prescriptive guidance of what to do next or who should interview this person in the second round, who should you know, take a closer look at, these particular candidates with some type of, I mean, there's all kinds of directions that you could
It's great.
go, but it opens up
Yeah.
a lot of avenues.
And, we've talked a lot about quality of hire today, which is one of the areas that Crosschq focuses on.
Yeah.
We also have the full end-to-end around the Startup Intelligence Suite with all the other recruiting analytics, through the acquisition we made of Talent.
Yep.
We also have all the candidate experience surveying, candidate listening capabilities. And so Quin sits on top of all that data too. So it's really fascinating to see I asked Quin, just like this, are we going to make our hiring plan for the month? Quin will tell you immediately whether you're going to make your hiring plan or how short you're going to come up for your hiring plan. We're seeing as customers are starting to cross creative questions and I love this one around correlate candidate NPS scores by recruiter with my offer acceptance by recruiter.
Okay.
It's cool. Do I have, if candidates love their experience that my recruiter is providing them, are they going to be more likely to accept the offer from the company? Things of that nature. So the point is, the power of these LLMs, the power of AI and all of this, it's awesome because it just opens up, the ability for us to get answers to questions and for stuff that's just hard to see. To make it out.
Yeah, I think that's the other part of, some people use the term augmented intelligence. I mean, it can see around some of these blind spots that people have, or maybe it's just a bandwidth issue or whatever it is, but you now have all of this at your disposal that you couldn't, at least an individual couldn't,
Correct.
pull it together at the point of decision, at the point of need. You mentioned bias before, so I was curious, just when we think about the responsible AI topic, to this point, I would say you guys are pretty immune from at least the high risk categories because you're not making decisions about candidates or whatever. But as you start to look at all of this data, companies could technically, course correct based on some of what they're seeing or whatever. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think anyone's completely off the hook, but I guess I'm just wondering how you think about as you're now an AI powered solution, just how you think about responsibility and fairness.
Well, I'll tell you this, and you're, Keith Sunderling, right?
He just walked by the way.
Is on our panel, right? On quality of hire and AI in a few minutes here.
Yeah.
And he and I have talked endlessly about this topic. And I will tell you that one of the areas that we can help is to, especially with upper funnel AI matching solutions, where there's a lot of risk, a bias perspective, is helping to connect those with actual outcomes to make sure that those things are working, frankly.
Yeah.
Quin, we have this you'll see this in the session. He asks Quin, is the AI matching score correlated to quality of hire? And you have to stay tuned for the result, but it's not perfect. So our ability to help govern that stuff and help you say, oh my gosh, we're screening people out of our process that actually, could be top performers. And this process is telling us to hire top performers that frankly turn out to be lower end on the performance scale. Think about that for a second. So the ability for that kind of stuff, I think it's awesome. And I think we can play an important role. We're not currently, it's that we're in the safe lane, as you said, right? We're using this to generate actionable insights out of your data. We're not using this to, tell you who to hire or to inform your selection decisions. Today.
For sure. Yeah. No, that's great.
Yeah. Help yourself.
Yeah.
We're giving away ice cream.
So all encompassing booth here. So what's next? I mean, what are you thinking about for 2025?
Oh man, we're just so excited to finally have some real momentum behind this conversation. I think that companies are ready to get more mature. I think there's a batch of talent acquisition leaders that are looking to make some noise. I really do. I think it's an exciting time. I think there's just a generation of leadership now that are data-driven folks. They're embracing AI, embracing technology, and they're embracing this challenge. And so we'll keep innovating from a product perspective, like you see us doing currently. But I think the most exciting thing is just keep getting the message out and keep delivering for our customers. Right? That's the goal.
Excellent. So I ask all my guests about this concept of an AIQ. So, if I were to tell you to elevate your AIQ, what types of things come to mind? Like, what would you advise people to do when it comes to AI and the future of work?
In terms of how to increase their own maturity on the topic.
Yeah, it could be like their individual AIQ. It could be their team AIQ, organization AIQ. How do people get better and not fall behind?
One fun thing, it's always going to build apps on top of these, like just go do it.
Yeah.
Right? That's one thing that I think is really cool.
Yeah.
I have encouraged my team. MIT is doing a 12-week course
Yeah.
that I've encouraged my team to invested in for folks to go partake in. It's awesome. It's a no-code AI, and it's like you get a certification from MIT. But it's a really cool way if you're willing to give 10 hours a week to it.
Okay.
I think in between those two extremes, certainly like any of the learning that's out there, right? OpenAI has some really good free stuff.
Yeah, there's some good like boot camps, and IBM has some resources. LinkedIn Learning. Yeah, there's a lot of.
Just go do it, right?
Yeah.
This is not rocket science. It's
Yeah.
actually, and these tools are maturing at such a pace.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, they'll also help you in the moment, right?
For sure.
If you have it there, and it's the toolkit and the user manual and the help guide all at once. So, yeah, no reason not to use it.
One other thing I'd say on that too is like don't think that your teams who are building the tools for you to use know that much more than you do. This is all pretty new.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
the ramp time to catch up,
Yeah.
it's not going to take a long time.
Right.
And so you can inform product roadmap and strategy. Even with
Yeah.
us, that's an important thing.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Well, that's also why I tell people when we talk about responsible AI, it's not just responsible use; it's responsible design.
Yep.
You've got to, it's another life cycle. You've got to look at how you're designing, testing, building these solutions in addition to using them responsibly. But we're all builders, we're all creators. Same way. To your point, it's so easy to just whip up an app. Well, now you're an app builder. I don't know if I call you a developer, but you're a builder. You built something. So.
Cool.
Anyway, Fitz, it was awesome to
Yeah,
chat.
thanks, man. Thanks.
Always good to see you, and look forward to your session
I
later.
love our innovation too. We pulled it off.
Right? How about that?
All right, cool.
Well, we should have had Commissioner Sonley come over and do a little cameo. I almost didn't recognize him because it's the first time I've seen him not in a suit.
What was he wearing?
He was wearing a black, like windbreaker. He's always prepared. Right?
All right,
So,
thanks.
anyway,
Appreciate
thanks
it.
again.
All right, we did it.